Hi, I'm Jim Brennan at McKelvey Homes. Have you always wished for a brand new home in an established neighborhood? Select one of our move-in ready custom homes throughout St. Louis, or we will build on your lot. Visit McKelveyHomes.com and move up to McKelvey.
News, traffic, and the latest from the world of sports. This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX.
Hey guys, welcome into a Wednesday night here on KMOX Rush Hour Sports with Sports Open Line to follow from 6 until 8 o'clock. It's going to be a little weird, at least, well, not so much for me because I'm kind of used to doing things the way we're doing them tonight. But I'm flying solo for both shows. Matt Pauley will be back next week, so he's out for the rest of this week. And I'm just picking it up for tonight. And you'll have Nate Gatter in tomorrow night just like normal. But happy to do this, man. We got a lot of baseball to cover. At 6:20 during Sports Open Line, Bernie Miklasz will join us in his regular Wednesday spot. Derek Gould's going to join me just after the 7 o'clock news, live from Las Vegas, the site of the GM meeting. So we'll mix in a lot of baseball here in this hour in Rush Hour Sports, and then we'll do even more coming up in the 2 hours that follow on Sports Open Line. But that's not going to be it. We're going to talk some Blues. Yeah, they beat the Flames, the worst team in hockey. I'm only teasing. Any win's a good win right now. Yeah, you take what you can get. We'll talk some Blues, specifically on the Blues a little later on. I'm going to ask a question that you're welcome to answer. If you're streaming, feel free to do that straight there on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. And that goes for anything. You guys want to comment, you want to throw in your 2 cents, agree, disagree, doesn't matter. We'll get to all of it. But on the hockey side later on, we talk the Blues. I'm going to ask a theoretical question. This isn't like, should they tank? That's not the question. But my question is that we'll tackle just after the news, the 5:30 news break. Is it really a terrible thing if they stink all year? Is it really that terrible if you have the potential for getting a high lottery pick? Jeremy Rutherford wrote about this in The Athletic, and it intrigued me. He didn't suggest it. He's just saying that, hey, maybe if you're going to get a new franchise player, it generally has to come from the top of the draft if you're going to get it in any kind of short order. So we'll kick that around a little later. I want to talk some college football playoffs later this hour as well. And as I mentioned in Sports Open Line from 6 until 8 o'clock, Bernie and Derek will jump in. We'll do some more Blues, more college football. We're going to be all over the place. I want to start with baseball, and the GM meetings are going on, and we don't have any real solid reporting yet, right? At least nothing that's like, hey, this is imminent. All we're hearing now is teams are interested in doing this and teams are talking about that. And, we've seen some of the national baseball reporters starting to hit on the things we've all been talking about with the Cardinals. And I'm not picking on them, by the way. They shouldn't be talking about the Cardinals all the time. That's what we do on a day-to-day basis. So, of course, we're going to be having those conversations before the Ken Rosenthal's and John Morosi's, and it's not anything against those guys. I love those guys. But the Cardinals are getting some buzz at the GM meetings, just in the sense that they are an attractive team for teams that are looking to buy. They are an attractive trade partner for teams looking to buy because they have several really good players that they're open to trading. And Chaim Bloom has talked about it a number of times and reiterated it at the GM meetings that, Nolan Arenado is going to be more open to some more ideas. They both agree, the team and the player agree that it's probably best to not just keep doing the same thing for either party's case. We know that, there's a possibility that Sonny Gray's name is going to be out there, and that's an attractive, we've talked about this a lot. Bernie and Matt and I have talked about it a lot, that Sonny Gray's super attractive this year because you're looking at, let's be realistic. He's been the Cardinals' number one, but if you're a contender, he's more of your 2 or 3. But it's a really attractive option, even at the money he makes, because it's only 1 year. There's no long-term risk. There's no aging to worry about. There's none of that. And then there's a guy like Brendan Donovan, who is going to be a really popular trade target for a lot of contenders because he's a little bit of everything, right? I don't want to trade him. None of us do, right? I mean, if you watch the Cardinals, you don't want to trade consistent performers. You don't want to trade guys that you can count on that have a good presence in the clubhouse and all that. So I want to be clear. I don't want to trade him. I think the Cardinals have to trade him. It's more of a practicality thing than a desire. I think the combination of him being 2 years away from free agency, you having players like J.J. Weatherholt, who are coming up to be able to play the spots that Donovan's primary. I mean, Donovan is great because he can play anywhere, but his best spot is second base. But you have Weatherholt as an infielder who's ready. I mean, if he has a good spring, he's going to be on this team. You've got some young outfield prospects. Joshua Baez is going to push here at some point soon. And you've got a lot of left-handed bats, and you want to have a little bit more balance. To me, it means that you trade the older guy closer to getting paid, because everything you pay him will be money you can't put somewhere else you're going to need it. And he happens to play positions where you have depth. You have players that can do this, and guys in the long term that can come along and do it too. So I think this is the time to strike. This is, and again, I don't want to run the guy to town. If he's here in the spring, I'll be happy because I know you have a good player. He's an easy dude to root for. He's really the kind of guy that I root for because he maximizes his gifts and he works his ass off, and we could all appreciate that. But the fact that he is such a consistent performer, and the fact that he's versatile, he's an on-base guy who can hit at the top of the order even for a contending team because of that on-base skill, is going to mean that you're going to get a good price for him. You're going to get a good price for him. You're going to get significant talent for 2 years of Brendan Donovan. Now, don't get crazy here. Like, we're not talking about getting a top 10 or 20 prospect in baseball. If you look at the top guys out there in the contenders, just as an example, you're not looking at dealing with, say, the Seattle Mariners and getting Colt Emerson from them, who's the number 9 prospect in all of baseball, a left-handed hitting infielder who's got some pop and really just a good high-quality player. But you're not getting that guy. You're not calling up the Dodgers and getting Jose De Paula, who is the number 13 prospect in baseball, who some scouts have called Baby Yordan, as in Baby Yordan Alvarez, because he's a big dude with developing power, and he's only 20. That's not what we're talking about, okay? But if you look toward the latter half of the top 100, or if you look at a solid organization like Cleveland, and you take a look at some guys that are maybe in the middle part of their top 10, maybe the bottom part of their top 10, you start to get an idea of the types of players. So maybe it's one of those guys and then another guy or two that are a little off of that. Maybe there's a lottery ticket tacked on, and then there's another middling prospect. He's going to be somebody that you can use to upgrade areas that you don't have strength in numbers at this point, and maybe even some short-term help depending on who you're dealing with, right? So if you're dealing with, say, the Yankees, and Bernie and Matt and I have talked about this a lot with the Yankees, they have an extraordinary number of really talented young starting pitchers that are kind of between AA and AAA that they're just not going to have room for. I mean, just practically speaking, they're not going to have room for them. You've got Luis Gil already in the big leagues. Cam Schlittler, with what he's done in the postseason, he's got a spot moving into next year. That Garrett Cole's coming back at some point in the next calendar year. You got Carlos Rodon on a big contract. They don't have room for everybody, but they've got several guys. I'm not going to drive you crazy with names, but if you go to MLB Pipeline and you look at their top 10 or 12, you see exactly what I mean. A bunch of guys that throw hard that are in their top 10 or 15 that are at AA and AAA. So big arm pitchers that are close to big league ready, which is, I mean, if you're thinking about the ideal return in a trade for the Cardinals, it's big arms that are close to the big leagues. And then the question becomes, okay, do these guys project as front of the rotation guys or, middle rotation guys, or maybe they're these guys that have a high ceiling and a little bit of a low floor. So that low floor means maybe they're a relief pitcher. When you throw 100, you're going to have a chance at being a major league reliever. So as we look at the case with Donovan, if you wait longer, you got the risk of something else going wrong. Look, he's missed significant time in 2 of the last 3 years with injuries. This year it was more nagging, but he had to have sports hernia surgery, and he missed time with foot problems that were related to all that. They're all interconnected. And then 2023, he had to have the elbow surgery. You don't want anything to go wrong again in this coming year. And then the closer he gets to free agency, the less he's going to be worth anyway, because he's getting that much closer. And I'm not saying you should never consider paying a guy like him. I don't think the Cardinals' current setup gives them the luxury to spend what it would take to give Donovan a 5-year extension. It'll be reasonable the first couple of years, but it's going to be in the $12 to $15 million a year range after that. And that's going to be when he's getting into his ages 32, 33 seasons. I'm not sure that's the wisest thing to do for where they are now. Now, if the Cardinals were coming into 2026 and they were what they were 6 years ago, and you're building for a contender, well, yeah, you know what? Give him the deal. He helps you win now, and it's not that big of a risk down the road. But it's that situation, and I think that's something that all of us that follow the Cardinals kind of have to get on board with. This is a different circumstance than what we're used to. And I would say that you're probably going to have, based on what we're seeing from some of the reporting in Vegas, I'll ask Derek Gould about this a little bit later on too. That'll be just after 7 o'clock. That, they're going to be, I would think, at least half a dozen teams making serious runs. And I think it was maybe Ken Rosenthal. I know Derek has touched on this too, but Rob Serfolio is, one of the new lieutenants under Chaim Bloom, really smart dude working in the, player development. And that's where he comes from in Cleveland. So if Cleveland has interest, who knows their farm system better than Rob Serfolio? Like those are the kind of connections you look forward to. And I think this is going to be a fun year. When Bernie comes on in an hour, so he's going to join us at 6:20 during Sports Open Line. He has a piece today that is about whether, the idea of trading Alec Burleson, not saying they need to, just exploring the yes or the no and why you would or what would it take and why you wouldn't want to do it. That's going to be an interesting conversation too. You got to blow me away to move Burleson. I mean, you'd have to be like, it has to be a Godfather offer. And not to say that it's because he's a star. It's because he's a really good player who's under control for 4 more years. You're planning on being good within that 4-year window. And he's not even going to be that expensive until you get to near the end of that 4-year window. So for that valuable of a player, for that kind of quantity, especially when he's a known commodity now after 2 years, you're going to want a lot in return. That's where you may be looking at one of those top 30 or 40 type prospects, a team that may not need that guy at any point in the next few years, and they'll just develop another one. So we'll continue to look at this in the offseason. I want to talk a little bit more about what the Cardinals could be targeting in free agency. That's been a popular conversation. We'll talk to Derek Gould about that later on, but I've seen him talk about it. I've seen some of the national reporters bring up that they're looking at, and we've seen Chaim Bloom even say this, they're looking at starting pitching and I think specifically a veteran reliever. So we'll talk a bit about guys that might make sense in that role coming up here on Rush Hour Sports.
Hi, this is Charlie Brennan. I see clearly now, thanks to the doctor.
Late. Call Jerry Kelly because they're open till 8. JerryKelly.com. They're fast and they're good and they got it going on. Jerry Kelly.
This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX.
All right, Rush Hour Sports on a Wednesday night. Kevin Wheeler with you here. Obviously, I'm going to stick around and do a little sports open line tonight, too. Matt Pauley's out for the rest of the week. He'll be back next week, according to the plan. And just figure we're all teammates here. We're going to help each other out when we need to help each other out. So that'll be me tonight. I get to do sports for 3 hours. It's like the old days, man. You guys, I know some of you guys that have been around a bit, but I spent most of my career doing 3 and 4 hour solo shows. So this is like just old school stuff to me. This is what I was doing when I was 27 years old, just doing an overnight show on Sporting News Radio back in the day. So feel free to join us, guys. If you want to comment on the stream, you want to text 314-436-7900. We're going to talk baseball now. I got some Blues coming up after the 5:30 news, a little college football later this hour as well. And then Bernie Miklasz at 6:20, Derek Gould from Vegas at the GM meetings at 7:05. Wouldn't it be funny if Derek was out there in Vegas, but not for the GM meetings? He's just out there to see a show at the Sphere and then, I don't know, hit the strip. Not that he wouldn't. I mean, I do those things. Just be weird if he was doing that there at the same time as the GM meetings. Let's switch around a little bit. So instead of talking about the potential for subtractions for the Cardinals, and I'll bring this one up with Derek later too, because this I saw. If you go to stltoday.com, he's got a kind of the best podcast in baseball, but a little bit shorter video version today where they're talking a bit about GM meetings, things, and all that. But there's a really interesting piece in there where they're talking about the things that the Cardinals are looking to add. And they are going to do some things in free agency. It's just not going to be headline-breaking stuff, right? Like the names that we've kicked around on here. I know a lot of us, Bernie, Matt, and I think Derek likes this one too, but like a guy like Dustin May would be a great ad, depending on the cost. It's all, and we don't know what teams are going to go for, but it's a bit of a reclamation project, right? He's a 28-year-old guy that throws 100 miles an hour, but he hasn't been healthy for a few years. And at 28, maybe that's a gamble you take when you're in a rebuild. And if it works, wonderful. And if it doesn't, well, you tried something cool. You tried something with a guy that has big stuff. But starting pitching, I would imagine that's the type. It's going to be a reclamation guy. It's going to be someone who maybe is coming off a bit of an off year. I'd be interested to look at a guy like Walker Buehler, on a 1-year deal or something along those lines, just on the idea that, hey, all right, first of all, you're going to have some innings coverage. That's great. Second of all, the upside could be that's a valuable trade piece at the deadline, because if you have a healthy Walker Buehler who's got kind of back to his old feel, that's a guy that has playoff experience. It's a guy with at times has had front of the rotation stuff. He hasn't really had that since injuries, but those are the types of guys I'd love to see them target. And I'm going to assume it's going to be short term and not super big money. And we know for sure that they're thinking about the bullpen. I would guess at least 1, maybe 2 veteran arms for the pen. And one thing about the pen that's nice is they're always available, right? I mean, we saw them pick up Maton late in the winter last year, and that was a hell of a move. He was super valuable for them and wound up getting them a piece at the trade deadline. But even if you're not going to get a piece from at the deadline, stability matters. Win the games you should, so that you don't ever get into this super sucky tank mode. Because that's the one thing I don't mind teams rebuilding. I hate tanking. I don't think it's never good. I just think it's just too much risk to even consider when you're not a tiny budget, small market team. If you're the Marlins, okay, maybe sometimes you need to try it. Pirates, maybe, although the Pirates have been trying it for 30 years. How well has that worked out? Never really gets them where they want to go, does it? Because they don't keep anybody around when the time comes. But a rebuild is actually a natural thing, and we've seen Boston do it. We've seen the Yankees take a little time. The Dodgers did it, this is before, Andrew Friedman and the new group came in there. But even they had times where they shed some payroll and just kind of retooled around some younger players. It's a smart thing to do from time to time. You don't want to, but sometimes you have to. But there are a couple of interesting guys on the free agent market, and Maton would be one of them for the bullpen. But the guy that I'm going to ask Derek Gould about later, because it's a guy they mentioned in the video that's on stltoday.com, is Pete Fairbanks. So I'm not going to lie, I was a little surprised that the Rays declined the option on him. I think it was $11 million for a guy that's been a pretty consistent closer. He's really tough to hit against. If you go look at his profile, his strikeout rate has come down a little bit, and maybe that's something that concerned other teams in trade talks. Maybe other teams just looked at it and said, why would we trade with Tampa when they'll probably just cut the money and run if they don't have any good trades, and then you can go get him in free agency. But, I mean, he's got an average fastball at 97 miles an hour. He doesn't give up barrels. He gets a lot of ground balls for a guy that throws hard. And he's picked up a little bit of a cutter that he's trying to work into his routine too. But that would be a guy, he's had 25 saves almost every year for the last few years. Might be an interesting pickup for the Cards. He's a St. Louis kid. A lot of you out there may know the guy. Went to Webster Groves. I've known Pete for a long time. I've known him since he was 14 years old. Back when Pete was a catcher. Yeah, the big guy that's now 6'7". He was about 6'3" then when he was a young guy. And he could be an interesting guy depending on his marketplace. I don't think it's going to happen personally. I think there will be some kind of playoff caliber team that looks at that and says, even if they don't see closer, 3-year deal of $7, $8, $9, $10 million a year for a guy that can come in and blow hitters away with 100 miles an hour. I think that's going to probably going to be keeping him out of St. Louis. But you know what? Wouldn't hurt to look, right? You might get the kid who wants to come back home for a little bit. And I would not count on that. Should I text Pete and ask him? I'm going to text Big Pete and go, hey, you coming home or what? But this is the kind of thing you want to look at as opportunity, right? If you were to sign a guy like that to a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal and you get to the deadline, it's another valuable piece. So I think you're looking at two things. You're looking at depth, so you never have to tap into players that aren't ready. And you're looking at guys that have some upside, guys that could give you trade pieces. And we'll get more in depth on that as the rumors go. We'll talk a little bit more about what we're hearing from the GM meetings with Derek Gould coming up at 7:05 tonight. And, of course, Bernie's going to join us in an hour. So we'll have more on the Cardinals coming up there. Next up, I want to throw some Blues things out there. So Blues fans, feel free to jump in. I got a question for you. Is it really a terrible thing if they end up stinking all year? I don't think they will. But if they do, is it the worst thing in the world if they end up with a really high draft pick? We'll get into that next up here on KMOX.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. Ever wonder
Interested in us buying a timeshare?
I'd rather eat Play-Doh.
Investment advisory products and services made available through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC IPW, a registered investment advisor. Neither the firm nor its agents or representatives may give tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any purchasing decisions.
Rush Hour Sports continues on 104.1 FM, KMOX.
All right, it's Rush Hour Sports on a Wednesday here on KMOX. Kevin Wheeler hanging out with you for the rest of this hour, and then I'm going to stick around. I'm going to do some Sports Open Line tonight. Matt Pauley's out the rest of the week. He'll be back next week. But for the time being, I get to flash back to the past. Not that long ago. It's only been 2 or 3 years. Yeah, something like that. Probably 3 since I did Sports Open Line on a regular basis. Something like that. But yeah, it's going to be Bernie Miklasz at 6:20. We'll talk some ball with him. We may mix it up. I may throw a couple of other things in there aside from Cardinals, but then we'll talk to Derek Gould at 7:05 from Vegas and just get what's the latest he's hearing at the GM meetings and just talk some ball with him. And you're welcome to jump in anytime you want. If you're on the stream, you can see my really shiny forehead. Pretty great. We have the greatest lighting in here. Like it's just always just a shine on my head. Here, let me try this. We'll see if getting rid of that ring light, man. It's still shiny. Still shiny. The problem when you have a giant forehead. It catches the light really well. But you can have a laugh at that. And then chime in if you want to on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. Switching to some Blues talk. Got a win last night. I'm going to try to not kind of ride the wave every game or win or loss for the time being. I mean, still the overall quality of play needs to be better, right? It was a solid win in Buffalo the other night, followed by a loss to Seattle. And, I'm not going to get all excited about a 3-2 win over the Flames. But here's the good news. It kept you further from the Flames from being the worst team in the league, but it also jumped you over Nashville in the division. So, baby steps. Baby steps would be the best way to talk about that. If you're looking for your positive, they've won 3 of the last 5. But does it really feel that good? I don't know. I don't think it does. But again, I still fully expect this team to be a hell of a lot better than it has been so far. And that's why it gets to the point of criticism, right? It gets to the point of people barking at the team, fans booing at games. It gets to that point because you're underachieving. If we know you're bad, we'll mostly just know you're bad, and we'll talk about that in areas to get better. And you talk a lot. I mean, look, man, I did Sports Open Line, and I did Blues pre and post games when they were the worst team in the league coming out of the lockout. I know what it's like to see a terrible, truly terrible team. This isn't that. They're better than that, which is why everybody's frustrated with them. What I'm going to get to after we do a quick hit on traffic is whether or not it's that big of a deal if this ends up being a bad season. If you end up picking higher than 10th for the first time since 2008, would that be a terrible thing considering you're kind of stuck in the mud as it is? We'll get into that coming up after a quick hit of traffic with Captain Roger Brandt.
Traffic from the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
Well, we got trouble in North County now, Kevin. This traffic reports the service of the Sandberg Phoenix Law Firm. Got an injury crash eastbound 270 about midway between Lindbergh and the Interbell. It's in the exit lanes, the right-hand lanes. Traffic's a solid jam back around the Horn past McDonald Boulevard. Northbound 170 is an alternate, is slow from 70 up to Airport Road, but then you're in the clear. Westbound 70, still some heavy traffic from like West Florissant all the way to Lucas Hunt. A couple of spots out through the airport to the Blanchette Bridge. 94 to Zumbell, 79 out through K. Just slow stretches periodically. None of that's jammed. Southbound 170 backs up in pockets from Olive all the way down to 64. Northbound from 64 up to the Parkway's heavy. A solid jam westbound 64 west of Grand all the way to Clayton's Kinker, but it's slow to Big Bend. It's slow Lindbergh to 270 west of Topgolf, and it backs up at Long Road all the way through the Boone Bridge. And then there's delays again from 94 most of the way to Winghaven, 364 to 70, 364 Youngerman through Mid Rivers is busy. South 270 jams, south to 364 down to Ladue, both ways between Olive and Manchester, still pretty busy. A new crash westbound 44, west of Lindbergh in the right lanes. Traffic's backed up to about Big Bend. Southbound 55 Arsenal down through Bates. You've got a pretty solid backup through there. Southbound 141 still backed up south of Ladue down to 64. And K still delays around 364, but no longer jammed. I'm Roger Brand at the MichaelsFlooringOutlet.com Traffic Center.
At Sandberg Phoenix, we're more than just a law firm. Our attorneys are committed to you, your business, and your community. We are ready to serve you in the areas of business litigation, intellectual property, health law, and products liability. SandbergPhoenix.com. The choice of lawyers is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertising.
All right, back in on Rush Hour Sports. Kevin Wheeler hanging out with you here today, flying solo tonight, and we'll be doing Sports Open Line after the top of the hour. I want to get back to the Blues, and I asked the question because I really thought Jeremy Rutherford had a super interesting piece in The Athletic. My buddy JR does an amazing job covering the team, and I read everything that JR writes, and I thought this one really caught my attention as an interesting conversation piece for the Blues. And his headline is essentially, what if the season becomes a lost year for the Blues? Would getting top prospect Gavin McKenna, would that offset it? And my answer to that would be yes. Like as soon as I read through the piece, he really gets into the nuts and bolts of it. It's fantastic. And you don't know for sure you're going to end up with the number one pick. And that's not what I'm arguing. Like tank for, any particular player. And I'm not arguing tank. Just to be clear, I'm not saying they should try to lose. They should just give up on everything. What I'm saying is, as a fan of a team, sometimes the team underachieving can have bigger long-term benefits. It can spur change, right? It can push a front office to make some necessary changes. It can get you the higher draft pick. I mean, let's use this. We'll do a quick Cardinals analogy. If the Cardinals hadn't struggled the last few years, there's no J.J. Weatherholt waiting to break in and potentially be an annual All-Star. We don't know he's going to be that, but we do know that right now he's seen as one of the top 5 prospects in the sport pretty much universally with all of the prospects rankers. That doesn't make it a guarantee, but you don't have that player if you're picking 24th. You don't have Liam Doyle, a lefty who throws 100 miles an hour and was one of the most dominant college pitchers in the country last year. You don't have him if you didn't have a down year. And I'm not saying you try to have a down year. I'm talking about our view as an outsider coming to the conclusion that sometimes it's not the end of the world. Do you think Cleveland Cavaliers fans were upset they ended up with LeBron James as a franchise-changing player because they were terrible? I'm a Pistons fan. Their general suckiness for the last 12 to 15 years helped them land Cade Cunningham, who looks like he's pretty damn good and has them back being a playoff team. There can be that silver lining in the dark cloud, and that's really what the question is. It's about perspective. It's not about recommending that a team go into the tank. I don't think the Blues should try to tank or try to lose. But I also think that as we observe from the outside, maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing if you end up with a pick higher than 10th. The last time the Blues picked higher than 10th was 2008. That was Alex Pietrangelo at number 4 overall. That worked out pretty well. That's a franchise defenseman. And I know that there are things that happen later in the draft that can work out. Vladimir Tarasenko was the 16th pick, and he's got 300 NHL goals, and he's coming up on 700 points. He had a great run for you. So I'm not saying that you can't get impact later than that. Right? David Perron was the 26th overall pick. David Perron's coming up on 800 points, and he's got 300 career goals, and he's been on a lot of winning teams. So the point isn't that you have to pick at that very top. Because we can use the example from 2006, and this guy's had a solid career. Eric Johnson's played 1,000 NHL games, but he didn't live up to being the first pick in the draft, which is what he was in 2006. So I know that the higher pick can fail. But it's also your best chance at getting the caliber of player that can change the course of your franchise. I'm sure Edmonton fans were not thrilled with how bad their team was. I'm sure they don't mind having Connor McDavid. Do you think any of them would want to reverse those terrible years and then not have Connor McDavid? So that's an interesting point. And again, I don't think that we're talking about, Gavin McKenna being that kind of player. And again, we don't know that you're going to pick number 1. The point isn't that it's that one player really. Although again, I really recommend reading JR's piece because it was a very interesting and in-depth read. But it does mean we don't have to look at this season being the be-all, end-all, because we know this. None of us expected this team to make a cup run. coming into the year. Nobody. I think the view was, if you have a good year, maybe you finish third in the division. That'd be great, but mostly it was a battle for a wild card spot was kind of the feel about the team, kind of like last year. May still be that. They weren't very good at the beginning of last year either. They got their coach fired. And they just might be right now a group of players that plays better as the season goes along. You got to fix that because you're just giving away opportunities at the beginning of seasons the way that they're going. So maybe they're going to be all right, but it's going to be okay if they're not. Because maybe it will spur Doug Armstrong to move a couple of guys that aren't working out. And maybe you end up picking inside the top 10, maybe inside the top 5, and getting your next Alex Pietrangelo. Or getting the next first, number one centerman or a first-line 40-goal guy to tack on. Somebody with an engine, hopefully. That would be nice. All right, we got more hockey coming up in Sports Open Line after the top of the hour news. That'll be probably coming up after 6:30. Next up, I just want to do a little on college football, and then we'll get to Sports Open Line coming up after the news.
At Bank of America, we're proud that more than 20 only 5 spacious home sites. Dragonstone offers luxury and privacy, as well as the convenience of living just minutes from highways 364 and 64. Visit LombardoHomes.com for more information.
This is Rush Hour Sports on 104.1 FM KMOX.
All right, just a few minutes left in this hour. I might have to save my college football rant that I have for a little bit later on during Sports Open Line. So I wanted to complain about the college football playoff rankings. Not really anything super specific other than the Notre Dame treatment, which just infuriates me. Because I don't, there's a lot that I don't understand about. I understand what they do. I don't like what they do. Let's be honest. I don't love that. And Bernie's mentioned this a few times. I don't love the name brand special treatment, even when it benefits my guys. I don't love it. I don't even have a complaint about where my guys are. They deserve to be where they are. If they're not going to win games against teams you're supposed to beat, you don't get to complain. But like I look at a case for Notre Dame, and I'll get deeper into this because I don't want it to sound like it's just my Notre Dame hate, because I do have that. But I know I have that. So at least I understand that part of it is irrational. But I think the case is very logical. It's like, I don't understand why they're the highest ranked 2-loss team. They don't have a good win. The best teams they've played beat them. And look, they're close games. I'm not going to kind of step around that. But do close losses actually matter more than quality wins? When you look at it and you're like, who's the best team that Notre Dame's beaten this year? It's USC. They're not that good. They're all right. But they also haven't beaten anybody either. Well, they beat Michigan, but Michigan stinks this year. So, I think that it'll sort itself out to a degree. I don't think it will for Notre Dame because they have such an easy remaining schedule. The last chance they have to lose is this weekend against Pitt. And I don't think they're going to lose that game against Pitt. They'll beat Syracuse and Stanford because those two teams are terrible. I understand that the name value matters, but I don't like hearing committee members talk about the eye test. Stop it. Stop it. This is not supposed to be, well, I think they look better. Just look at the track record, the quality of the wins, the quality or lack of quality of the losses, and then find a way to make a really good case that is consistent and that can apply to every school the same way. That's the problem, is the lack of consistency. I'll have more on that coming up later on. Sports Open Line with me coming up after the 6 o'clock news here on KMOX.
It's the Medicare Advantage and
And much like today, temperature-wise, 65. Thursday night, partly cloudy, 52. Friday, mostly sunny. Wonderful, warmer, 75 for the high on Friday. The record's 81 from 1971, so I think that record is probably safe. Friday night, partly cloudy, 60. Saturday, sunny and 78. The record on Saturday is also 81 and also from 1971. I'm going to be close to that one. Sunday, partly sunny. It's cooler, but nothing more than a spot shower. I think Sunday's mainly a dry day and 62. From the Saliga Heating and Cooling Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Dave Murray on 104.1 FM, KMOX.
50 degrees in St. Peters, 54 in Florissant, and 54 downtown of the Arch. I'm Maria Aquino, KMOX News.
Come on, let's get going now.
From KMOX Sports.
We're primed and ready. All day, baby. Hey, let's go.
This is the Gray Bar Sports Open Live. Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and datacom needs on 104.1 FM, KMOX.
All right, good to be with you on Sports Open Line. Man, that's interesting to say. I haven't said that in a long time as the host anyway. I've joined Matt quite a few times on Sports Open Line, but haven't hosted the show in a good while. Obviously, Matt Pauley's out tonight. He'll be back next week, and I'm pinch hitting. I'm Kevin Wheeler, by the way. If you didn't notice my big mouth, that's me. And in the spot that I was in for super long time. I've done a lot of Sports Open Line shows, just none of them recently. It's good to be with you, man. We got a lot to do. Bernie Miklasz is going to do his regular Wednesday hit at 6:20. Just after 7 o'clock, so about 7:05, Derek Gould's going to jump on with us live from Las Vegas from the general managers meeting. So we'll kind of get the latest vibe from there. In the meantime, we got a bunch of other things. I got some baseball here that I want to do, some college football, maybe some NFL. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm feeling hot enough on that, but we'll see where I'm at the end of the show. Definitely have more thoughts on the Blues on an off night tonight, coming off the win over Calgary. And we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show today as well. Starting off with baseball, I want to go just a little bigger picture here. We'll hone down on Cardinal stuff with Bernie and Derek, and maybe we'll broaden it out a little bit with Bernie too, and maybe do a little college football or something along those lines. But we'll start with baseball with Bern at 6:20. When we're at that stupid time of year, and that by stupid time of year I mean the time of year where Scott Boras holds court. I have no beef with Scott Boras and the way that he does his job. His job is to make the most money for his players that he can. He's pretty damn good at it. He's been arguably the best agent in the sport in that regard for 30 years. I've had the chance to talk to Scott over the years. He didn't used to be as goofy and corny as he is now. I despise his little gatherings at the GM meetings and the winter meetings when he's speaking in riddles and rhymes. And today he's doing the same thing. Was it nobody wants a Brexit in Boston, talking about Alex Bregman? Stop it. Stop. And I don't know why. Why do we listen to him when he's doing that? Like, it's one thing if he's going to answer questions because he's one of the most influential people in a baseball offseason. But as soon as he starts, just stop putting those quotes in, and maybe he'll stop doing it. I know it's a nitpick. It just annoys me. I don't like the cornball nonsense, man. You're not on vaudeville. You know, if you have a genuinely funny line, okay. But you don't have a genuinely funny anything for every player that you represent. Puns aren't funny enough to keep doing that. Dumbass jokes like this, just stop. There are a few things about this time of year. This is what I wanted to vent about in the beginning. And again, we'll do normal baseball talk. We'll talk cards with Bernie and Derek Gould. We'll talk. There's plenty of good baseball conversations coming out, but it gets clouded by a few of these things at this time of year. One of them is the stupid Boras show. Another is, and again, there's a valid part to this. We've talked about it a lot, the upcoming labor dispute. Nate Gatter and I talked a lot last night about practical solutions and what it's all going to look like and how would you even do a cap. Those are all fine, but we don't have to just kind of keep talking about this as impending doom. Like it might be and it might not be. I think we have to talk about the details. We have to talk about how to avoid it, but we don't need to keep getting people wound up over it. Of course, sports news is news, and news is all about stirring it up. Got to make it emotional, man. Got to have that rage bait in there because that's what gets the clicks. And that's what we do a little bit with this stuff in sports. We're going to rage bait a little bit with labor talk. Get people fired up and mad. We get people yelling on Twitter, got to have a salary cap. I mean, all right, but if you don't have revenue sharing, a salary cap doesn't mean anything. If you don't have full revenue sharing like the NFL does, your cap can just take off and jump in a lake. It doesn't do any good. And then another thing that drives me nuts is in this time of year is the never-ending push by the, quote, insiders. Again, people who I like. I do not dislike any of those people. Not on a personal level and not even on a professional level, but I do hate this thing. I do hate how the National Baseball insiders are always trying to push guys from Pittsburgh to New York or from Milwaukee to Los Angeles or whatever. And I don't mean like actively make them go or create it, because the reporting on it isn't going to make teams go, oh, whoa, John Heyman wrote that we should go after Freddie Peralta. Let's go after. You're not making anything happen. But the thirsty talk about trying to get every star player into a big city because all the insiders are in big cities and they want to cover it. Can we just slow down? I understand the conversations about Freddie Peralta, right? We've even heard the Brewers might consider trading him. I understand the conversations about Tarik Skubal. He's the best pitcher on the planet. I didn't even check. Did he win the Cy Young? Did they do that already tonight? Or is that coming up at 7 o'clock? It's coming up at 7 o'clock? All right. I'd be shocked if he doesn't win his second straight Cy Young. I understand the interest in the best pitcher in the game who's only got 1 year left on a contract. But do we already have to have the push to make him a Met when we're not considering the needs of I'll say this. If I'm the Milwaukee Brewers, and I'll speak to them first because they're in the Central Division, I think they're a team that the Cardinals can definitely learn a thing or two about, or learn a thing or two from, but also it's a team you're competing with. If you're them, you had the best record in baseball. Why would you trade your best pitcher who's only making $10 million or $14 million or whatever it is when they have a chance to go make a run this coming year with him? Now, I get it. I think with any of those players, you can say, hey, if I get a Godfather offer, I'm going to take it, right? If somebody offers me something like what the Washington Nationals got for Juan Soto, okay, well, we can listen to those kinds of things. But if I'm Milwaukee, you better come to me with your best offer if you're talking about my best pitcher, and I just had the best record in baseball, and he doesn't cost me anything. Right? I mean, if I'm Detroit, that's a top 10 or 11 market. They've made the playoffs 2 years in a row. They just took Seattle to the 15th inning of Game 5 of a series. Why would they trade their best player when they're trying to make another playoff run? Unless it's going to have to be that Godfather offer that you can't turn down. But this constant failure to analyze where each team is, the selling team, is annoying. Like Pittsburgh, all the Skeens stuff. They're not trading Skeens. He makes them money. He makes no money, and he sells tickets when he pitches. Why would they do that now? They'll do it eventually. We know that. But they have him for the next 4 years. They're not going to do it now. But it doesn't stop people from throwing the name out there. Will they trade Skeens? No. He's the only thing they have that sells tickets. And that does matter. All right. Done ranting on the offseason stuff for now. That's it for now. We'll talk to Bernie Miklasz when we come back here on Sports Open Line on KMOX.
Overhead Door Company of St. Louis, the genuine, the original, present 100 years of KMOX.
We have some stunning breaking news.
There, when hope took the mic.
We did locate Ben this afternoon in the city of Kirkwood, and we've also located Sean Hornbeck.
Sean Hornbeck was sometimes seen outside the basement apartment where he and Ben Ownby were recently found. 14-year-old Montserrat Arias remembers hearing noises come from the basement apartment.
Someone was talking to him, and he would respond, but not yelling at him at all.
11-year-old Sean Hornbeck wouldn't come home for 1,558 days.
The crimes against Sean and Ben are among the worst that any parent could ever encounter.
Their captor, Pizza Parlor manager Michael Devlin, eventually pled guilty.
What really just made me hold on strong is knowing that my parents will always look for me.
There for every headline, every heartbreak, every heartbeat. KMOX, the voice of St. Louis.
Attention all dog owners. If you have ever listened to the radio or TV for any length of time, you've probably heard of America's #1 dog supplement, Rough Greens. Greetings, naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, Amazon best-selling author and founder of Rough Greens here. And if your dog suffers from bad breath, itchy skin, licking paws, joint pain, or low energy, the truth is their food is probably to blame. You see, all commercial dog food is dead food. That's why I created Rough Greens. One daily scoop gives your pup the live vitamins, omega oils, probiotics, and enzymes that will bring their food back to life. Don't believe me? Let your dog try it before you buy it. I'll send you a free Jumpstart trial bag, risk-free. You just cover the shipping. Go to roughgreens.com. That's RUFFgreens.com. Use discount code NEWS. Don't wait. Give your dog the gift of vibrant health. Order now. It'll be at your house in a few days. Go to roughgreens.com. That's RUFFgreens.com. Discount code NEWS for your free Jumpstart trial bag today. Rough Green. We make any dog food better.
You've got your whole life ahead of you, so choose a Medicare plan you can count on. And that's what you get with a Medicare Advantage plan from United Healthcare. With more than 45 years experience serving its members, United Healthcare has plans with low monthly premiums that fit your life today and as your needs change tomorrow. The Medicare annual enrollment period ends December 7th, so go to uhc.com/Medicare today. United Healthcare Medicare plans. It's Medicare coverage Missouri can count on.
Now that we're getting older, we've been putting more thought into maintaining our health.
We knew the water we drink every day could be filled with contaminants. So
we called Leaf Home Water Solutions.
They came to our home and did a free water test and gave us the analysis right away.
We were shocked at what we saw.
They found heavy metals like iron and copper.
Our own tap water was putting our health at risk, but Leaf Home Water Solutions made it easy to get safer water from every tap and hose. A whole home solution.
They have more than 250 product combinations and designed a system that fits our needs and budget. The installation took less than a day.
With Leaf Home Water Solutions, our water is safer and healthier. When we drink, when we cook, when we shower, even when we garden.
We feel better about our health.
Thanks to Leaf Home Water Solutions.
Schedule your free home water test today at leafhome.com/free and save 15% on all home water treatment systems. That's leafhome.com/free for your free home water test and 15% off. leafhome.com/free.
This is Megan Lynch. 250 doctors go to Ophthalmology Associates. That's why I trust them. Ophthalmology Associates, 314-966-5000 or youridoc.com.
Want to build income without a second job? Learn how real estate investing can help you create extra income one step at a time with Lifestyles Unlimited. Text radio to 88007. That's RADIO to 88007. Presented by Lifestyles Unlimited.
I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. If you've been injured in a car accident, call America's largest injury law firm. For over 35 years, my mission has been to deliver more for our clients, to deliver more for you. If you or anyone in your family has been injured in a car accident, call us now, as the time to file a claim may be limited. Last year, more clients hired Morgan & Morgan than ever before, protecting America, fighting for you. Morgan & Morgan. Visit forthepeople.com for an office near you.
This is Scott Bakula. Congratulations, KMOX, on an amazing 100 years. And thanks for always being a voice we could count on.
Sports Open Line on a Wednesday night. Matt Pauley is out. He'll be back next week. Kevin Wheeler in for him. And as you always hear on a Wednesday around this time, Bernie Miklasz is joining us. Hey, Bern, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Will. It's good to be with you, man.
Yeah, I was doing a little venting in the last segment about some of the annoying things of this time of year in baseball. Like Scott Boras and his stupid poems and rhymes and puns and that nonsense. I hate that so much.
He really thinks he's a great entertainer.
Oh, my God. I mean, yeah. I actually have no animosity towards him for the job that he does. I know a lot of baseball fans hate him. I don't. I mean, if his players don't get paid, well, that just means billionaire owners are going to keep the money. So I'm not going to root for the owners over the players who I want to go watch play. But this kind of clown show stuff, he didn't used to be this way. I have talked to him many times over the years, way back, In fact, the first time I interviewed him, Bernie, was over the Adrian Beltre thing. You remember when Adrian Beltre was a kid and he filed a grievance about how something was wrong with the way the Dodgers signed him, and then he won and he basically gained free agency and he got a big contract when he was super young. Like we talked then, and he was a normal, guy, a little bit funny here and there, but like I hate this pre-rehearsed thing, and I know he's got people writing this stuff for him, and it's so dumb.
Yeah, part of it is that it plays really well with the media. Maybe not you, maybe not me. I'm not a fan of it. So he's turned this into a Broadway production every year.
Yeah,
it is annoying. But I'll be honest with you, the whole general manager meetings are a big waste of time. I'm not talking about from the fact that the general managers get together and they lay the groundwork. I'm not saying that, but there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people in lobbies, standing around trying to figure out what to write or what to say. And so Boris fills a void.
Yeah, and I actually, I think there's value, as you put it, having them together, there's value in those guys having face-to-face meetings. I do think there's some value in some of the reporting that's done too, because they get to have initial conversations that lead them to follow up on things. But it's just not great for public consumption this early, right? It's a lot of wait and see, and a lot of, maybe some peripheral stuff, right? Like we've seen stories today, at least I saw a couple reports today from the national guys that the Pirates and Marlins might actually spend a little money this offseason in free agency, which would be, I'll believe it when I see it, but it would be nice.
Yeah, that's been a theme this week. I've noticed that too. And I like Bob Nightingale because he moves it around and fills you in on a lot of different teams from USA Today. So yeah, I've seen that too. And we'll find out. It does make sense for I think it makes sense for the Marlins for sure. They quietly had a good season last year, and I don't think they're that far away. So, not that means they'll make a push for the postseason, but you never know. But I like that if they're going to do that. The Pirates, I have no faith that they'll actually spend money. But when Peter Bendix talks about it, the Marlins guy, the Chaim Bloom of Miami, then I think there's something to it. I tend to believe it.
Yeah, well, they only won 4 fewer games than the Mets.
Right. Amazing, right?
Yeah, and on that note, and this is where I want to tie it into the Cardinals. There's a path that I want to follow here because, there are a couple of national guys, and obviously we've all been talking about this too, but there have been a couple of national guys saying the Cardinals have been a very popular team there because they have some pretty good pieces to trade, and in particular on the pitching side with Sonny Gray. If I'm the Marlins, am I going to trade Sandy Alcantara now that I'm not that far from, they're 79 wins, heck, 83, 85. That can get you into the playoffs.
And he was really good after the All-Star.
Yes, he was.
Too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, we listen. I don't think anyone had to travel to Las Vegas to know that the Cardinals were going to be a popular team. No, I mean, I'm just because they've made it clear they want to make moves, and Chaim Bloom's been very upfront about it and very transparent about it. So I don't know, that's it might be news in other places. It's certainly not news here. I mean,
No, you're totally right. We've been doing that for weeks.
The one thing that got me excited today was looking at Baseball America's updated Cardinals top 10 list. No, it really did.
I agree. Yeah.
It really did. I mean, that's rather than, the trade speculation and, names being thrown around. This is a rebuild, and a big, huge thing in the rebuild is going to be how good this player development is, whether it's going to deliver over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I see Baseball America coming out with a new top 10, and for example, they have Joshua Baez, the outfielder, they have him 4th. They moved him up to 4th. And they talked about how the future, they say he looks like he could debut for the Cardinals in 2026. He's a potential above average regular with the potential for 30 homers and 30 stolen bases. That's quite the endorsement from Baseball America.
Absolutely.
And those guys don't fool around. I mean, they're pretty serious about this stuff. So, and I noticed where the pitcher they took, the other guy from Tennessee, Tanner Franklin.
Yeah.
He's number 6 on the top 10 list, just like that. They drafted him the same day they drafted, or the same draft that they drafted Liam Doyle.
Yep. And
now his teammate, and Doyle's number 2, as you would expect, behind Weatherholt. But now Tanner Franklin, who throws 100,
yep.
And they're talking about how he's shows an ability that he's going to pick up a breaking ball. So all of a sudden, he's their number 6 prospect, just like that. It took like 30 seconds. So that kind of stuff is what fires me up as someone would like to see the Cardinals have successful return.
Yeah, and look, you throw on top of that, because you mentioned those guys. I mean, obviously, JJ is one of the top 5 prospects in baseball. Throw on top of Doyle and Baez and Franklin. Bernal just won the minor league Gold Glove for catchers, and he's going to be at AAA this year to start the year. We know Quinn Matthews is a super interesting left-handed arm who's close, and if he's healthy, he's probably going to be a big part of the 2026 team. And you got a kid in Rainiel Rodriguez who's probably one of the biggest rising prospects in the sport this year.
Right, and they have 3 of the, we knew this already. It's just that they shuffled them around. The Cardinals have 3 catchers on the top 10 list: Jimmy Crooks, Rodriguez, and Bernal. And I do believe that, if you're looking at this, especially if they want Crooks on the big club this year, I would think that Pedro Pages will be traded.
Makes sense. He'd have value.
Who knows?
He'd have value.
I know the manager and pitching coach really like him. But this team's loaded with catchers, and if just because Ivan Herrera wants to catch in 2026, it doesn't mean that he will be their catcher. People are sort of jumping over a hurdle to make that conclusion. I'm not sure yet. When Ali Marmol on the Gas House Gang told us, when we asked him about this, he basically laid it out the way I said it. He said, "Well, look, listen, he wants to catch. We're going to give him a chance to catch. We're going to see how he does."
Right.
So it's kind of an open thing. It's not like, well, we're going to lock him in a catcher. So they have a lot of catchers, which means somebody's got to go. And I don't think they want to trade the 18-year-old Rodriguez.
No, he may
probably
not.
Probably don't want to trade Bernal either. But no, this is it's a great list. That young shortstop, that 18-year-old shortstop's on the top 10. Jairo Padilla.
Yep.
So I mean, they've got. Listen, Fangraphs has them as the number 1 farm system right now. Baseball America is being really, really positive. These are independent evaluators. These are not St. Louis homers. These are, and especially Baseball America. This is what they do for a living, and they're really good at it.
Yeah.
I think things are looking good. The Cardinals are going to do whatever they're going to do in terms of the major league roster, but the most important thing there is that this player development system really thrives and starts delivering players and good players. And I'm just saying, potential of that happening, is at a pretty exciting level, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was talking about this earlier, Bernie, in reference to the Blues. JR had a really good piece, Jeremy Rutherford in The Athletic, about essentially just saying maybe it's not the end of the world if the Blues stink all year. And look, I don't know that I don't think they're going to. I don't want them to. But if you end up with a top 5 pick, that may not be the end of the world for a team that's going to need a core player. And I kind of think we can look at the Cardinals and see, we didn't want them to go through what they just did these last couple of years. But if they didn't, you don't have a top 5 prospect in the whole sport in J.J. Weatherholt knocking down the door, and you don't have Liam Doyle sitting there right behind him who's going to be pushing as a lefty throwing 100.
Well, that's exactly right. And the Blues have drafted pretty well. And
sure.
I do think that I'm always in favor. If you're not going to be a good team and you're not, even if you're a borderline playoff team, I'd prefer you make the playoffs. But if we know that you're not really going to do anything, even if you get there, it doesn't get me too fired up. So, if you're going to be bad, be bad. I don't know what to say, because I agree with what you said. Yeah, I agree with what you said.
I'm not saying tank. I'm just saying if it goes that way, it's not the end of the world, because the Cardinals and the Blues, to me, have been in similar spots. You're kind of stuck in the middle. You're competitive enough, but you're not going to win a title. And you're lacking in certain, like, for me, the Blues thing is not about a lack of talent or even a lack of prospects. They have a lot of good prospects. It's that you don't have a guy. You don't have a guy that's going to be the one that takes over and can be your franchise dude. They got talent, but they got guys that are passengers. And if you find a guy, that can help.
You use the word passengers. I think that's great, because that's exactly the problem with that team. They have talent, but they have a lot of people who are content to ride shotgun, or even better, in the back seat. Like, don't look at me. Don't look at me. I'm not the leader. They have way too much of that. And it's been kind of a chronic issue here. I don't know why. To me, that's a mystery, and no one has ever really analyzed it in a way that makes sense. Why do they keep getting players who clearly have talent? Thomas and Kyrou, Buchnevich, we can name a bunch of guys. But what is it? What is there something in the water where these guys can't step up and become leaders? I just find that really strange.
Yeah. I think it might explain a little bit, given their physical abilities, why they were drafted where they were, especially a guy like Kyrou, right? I mean, you look at a guy in Kyrou who lit up the amateur level, right? He was lighting it up on the scoreboard. He was the fastest skater, and everybody loves speed because speed always plays. But yet you're a top of the second round pick. That guy has the physical ability to go top 10 or 15, but he didn't. And maybe this is part of the reason why. Maybe people saw that.
It could be because, scouts obviously look at talent first and all the identifiable traits that they like, but you never really know if someone, unless he was a team captain on a great, junior team that was really successful, you really never know how they're going to evolve as they mature. The stuff that doesn't have to do with their play, leadership capabilities, competitiveness, things like that. And the Blues just keep these guys. Sometimes they step up, sometimes they don't, and it's just kind of weird.
Yeah, and we'll close on this note with the Blues, Burn, and it applies to the Cardinals too. I mean, I think they're not exactly the same. I think the Cardinals may be the opposite. Not maybe. They are the opposite. The players are, most of them, and there are exceptions, but I think more of their core players fit the try-hard attitude, right? The grinding, they're going to put in the work and all that. And I don't necessarily mean just physical work, right? I mean, like, get after it and grind in the middle of a game and battle through an at-bat, or in the hockey case, get into the corner and go get the puck. Don't accept that somebody's going to beat you to it. Things along those lines. Get to the, all the cliche things that coaches say, right? Get to the front of the net. Get to the dirty areas. I think the Cards have more guys like that than the Blues do, that have those characteristics of being dirt dogs, but still, you're finding ways to. They try to find ways to get through with a little bit less talent than they should have. And the Blues are a little bit on the other side. You think you have more talent, but you're just not getting enough out of it.
See, I agree with you. I would say the Blues have more talent than the Cardinals do, but the Blues don't have the grit that the Cardinals do. Now, all the haters will say, well, what are you talking about? They have grit. They lost 84 games or whatever. We're not talking about that. They didn't have enough talent.
Right.
They don't hit for power. They didn't have enough starting pitching.
Correct.
They had all kinds of problems there. But for a team that lost 84 games or 178 games, they were among the major league leaders in comeback wins.
Mm-hmm.
So I rest my case.
Yeah, totally with you there. Good catching up, Bern. We'll look forward to doing this again next week. I'll be out the end of the week this week, so we won't talk on Friday. But have a good weekend until I talk to you next week. And in the meantime, tell us about Saliga.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Wheels. Great being with you. Saliga Heating and Cooling, 4 generations of that family ownership and operating that family business, the proud family business. Those 4 generations of Saligas have been taking care of multiple generations, to say the least, of St. Louis since 1927. We're talking about just under 100 years of being in business down there in South City. In fact, on the same building on Gravois. That's how you talk about stability. And, I recommend Saliga, very happy to endorse Saliga, because we've been calling them for 17 years, soon to be 18 years. And we know from all of our dealings with them, they're 100% honest. You can trust their integrity. It's not optional. Their integrity is constantly there because they want to earn your respect. They want to earn your business, earn your trust. So they believe they have to work for it. They don't just accept the fact that it's going to just happen. They want to prove it every single time that you ask them for their help. So we're huge fans here and of that Saliga Heating and Cooling. We're also really grateful to how well they've taken care of us and some of our neighbors through many, many years. They also have a priority club. It's a maintenance plan. It's going to save you money by extending the life of your current equipment. They always look for ways to save you money rather than trying to talk you into something expensive. That's another reason why you should trust and you should call Saliga Heating and Cooling. For the phone number and all information, go to SaligaHeatingandCooling.com. Thank you.
The Bernie Nicholas Report on KMOX is sponsored by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin comfort dealer.
If you're one of the million
Canyon. Pregame 6:45. Tip at 7 on 104.1 FM KMOX.
Back in on Sports Open Line. Kevin Wheeler in for Matt Pauley tonight. Matt will be back next week. We have Derek Gould joining us from Vegas at the top of the hour. He's at the GM meetings, and we'll just he's been having in addition to doing the I'll let him describe it, but kind of like hotel surfing throughout the day, and you're listening to Boris and you're going to talk to people. But the Cardinals also have a little meeting for the media to come to. Do it every single day, and I believe that was early. I believe that's just a couple hours ago. So he's already done that for today as well. So we'll get the latest from Derek Gould from the winter meetings, GM meetings after the top of the hour news. We're just having a fun discussion during the break because they're announcing the Cy Young Awards tonight. They announced Tarek Skubal won the Cy Young Award, so it's the second in a row. And then we're just kind of going around because you think we were talking about the guys. And Kyle, you brought it up, but we were talking about the guys the lefties who have won back-to-back Cy Youngs. And I could come up with a couple of them, but, the recent ones are pretty obvious. Clayton Kershaw, Randy Johnson. And then we started getting into, how many 200-game winners are we even going to have? And I think there are going to be plenty of 200-game winners still moving forward. But I think we might have seen the last 300-game winner. I don't think we're getting another. The closest right now is Justin Verlander. He's at 266. And I don't think he can get to 300 because he's going to have to pitch probably another 3 years. He's not going to really be, because he was okay this past season, but it was still only 4 wins. Like, he pitched okay. He just didn't get any run support. And that's part of the problem, right? Is winning games requires innings and support. Unless you're Bob Gibson. He had the innings, but he didn't have the support, right? I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he won as many games as he did. Well, actually, I should say I know how many because he did it by himself. He could have easily been, 30, 32 game winner. But, understand that historically speaking, you need some run support and you need to pitch innings. And obviously, the better the team that you're on, the better it's going to be. I think that this led me to what I wanted to follow up on is that I think Major League Baseball will eventually recognize that they need these guys. I know the trend has been to go away from it. And I think if you go away from pushing innings on your 3rd, 4th, and 5th starter, okay, I get it. They're not as good. I think you need as many innings as you can get from your best pitcher, your ace. And if you have 2 of them, then get as many, because what we're going to see, and we've already seen it starting to happen, and we're seeing it in the playoffs nearly, and in some cases tear teams apart, in other cases nearly tear them apart. There's a reason the Dodgers were using starters in relief in the elimination game in the World Series, because they didn't trust any of their relievers. Their relievers were all broken. Half of them were already on the injured list. And that's the problem, is the quality proven relievers are getting hurt more and more, and their performance varies anyway from year to year. But when you can rely on a Paul Skeens, Justin Verlander, who for a lot of his career was throwing 240, 250 innings a year, at some point, I think the brains inside of baseball will recognize. So here's my evidence to back up the claim that they will eventually come back around. Not to 250 innings, but I think they're going to realize that it's okay to let your best guys, even if there's a 3rd time through the order penalty, your best guy the 3rd time through is going to be better than a middle reliever who is probably going to be hurt. Or better than just burning your bullpen and then having that fade as you go. So you look at what Skubal does as an example. You can unload your bullpen the day before he pitches because you're not going to need him. He's going to go 7, and he might go more, but he's going to shut the other team down. You're only going to have to cover a couple innings for him. And then the day after, you have a fresh bullpen. So before you can use the bullpen, the day of, maybe you need your closer, maybe you need 2 relievers. And then the day after, now you have a fresher bullpen, and you can kind of work that way. That's the benefit. It actually will make your use of the analytics matchups and the understanding of fresh arms and third time through the order. It'll actually let you use it more where you really need it, as opposed to when your number one guy is going. Now, if you don't have a number one guy, well, good luck. You better have a lot of relievers. But the evidence that this will turn, and I'll take a quick time out after this because I could go on this forever. The evidence that it's going to turn, I think we're seeing on the offensive side right now. Because on offense forever, the emphasis has been power and walks, right? Home runs and walks. And it's still there. That's not going away. But we're going back to more teams valuing the hit tool. This is why guys like J.J. Weatherhold are going at the top of the draft. Guys like Travis Bazzana from Cleveland. The value of a Bo Bichette in free agency this year is going to be partly because he doesn't swing and miss that much. And we're seeing that reducing swing and miss is becoming popular again. That's evidence that we can emphasize traits for a while, realize, okay, those things still matter. Power and walks, homers and walks still matter. But the other thing matters too, and we're going to reemphasize those kind of things. We want to play matchups. We want to be aware of the third time through the order. But if we do that 5 days a week, we're going to run out of arms. If we have one or two guys that we don't have to do that with, you can actually use that strategy more effectively when you're going to need it with your less talented starters. All right, Derek Gould's going to join me after the top of the hour. A little more Sports Open Line to end this hour next up on KMOX.
It's the Medicare Advantage.
The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely upon advertisements.
This is Bill Reeker. Congratulations to KMOX, 100 years of being the voice of St. Louis.
I'm back on Sports Open Line. A little more baseball. I can't keep. It's awards night, or it's Cy Young night, I should say. Tarek Skubal was announced as the American League Cy Young Award winner for the second year in a row. Did they announce the National League yet? It's going to be Paul Skeens. I mean, yeah. Did they announce it yet?
Haven't announced it yet.
But it's going to be Skeens. I mean, he's the only starting pitcher in baseball that has sub-2 ERA, and he pitched 187 innings. So he's going to be the Cy Young in the National League, and rightfully so. But I saw Sarah Langs, who does a really great job covering Major League Baseball for MLB.com, and she used to be with ESPN. She does a really great job, and she's great at finding these nuggets. And she posted the franchises with the most Cy Young Award winners of all time, and the Dodgers are the all-time leaders with 12. The Braves have 8. A lot of the '90s Braves certainly were a part of that. And then after that, it's a 3-way tie. It's the Mets, Red Sox, Phillies, and Tigers. And we were thinking about, like, where do the Cardinals go? And I thought, oh, they must have 4 or 5. And I know that they don't. Part of me knew it because I've talked about this before. We talked about it when Waino almost won. That Waino would have been the first one since Chris Carpenter. Chris Carpenter won the Cy Young in 2005. But they've only had, the Cardinals in their history, with all the pitching that they've had, have only had 3 Cy Young winners. And 2 of them are Bob Gibson and then obviously Chris Carpenter. So technically 2 Cy Young winners, but 3 Cy Youngs. That surprises me. It makes sense. We know the history, but it's just a little surprising for a team that historically has won so much, hasn't had the guy that ends up winning the award. Bruce Sutter, I'm sure, got close a couple times as a reliever. I haven't looked back, but I was a little surprised that we didn't have a Dizzy Dean one. But it is interesting that you've got the second most World Series titles in the history of the sport, but only 3 Cy Young awards in that entire amount of time. It's surprising. It's funny. It's one of those things, like, I know I knew it, but I just, having not thought about it directly for a number of years, you're just like, oh, of course they have more than that. If you look at, where they have ranked, people ranked on leaderboards all over the place, you'd be like, you got Stan, and you got with the number of Hall of Famers they've had, period. You're like, oh, they must have more. Who's the next Cy Young Award winner for the Cardinals? Is it Liam Doyle? Way too early. Way too early. I'm just messing around. I'm definitely not trying to forecast that. All right, stick around. We're going to have more on the Cardinals, more on Major League Baseball. My good friend Derek Gould is going to join us from the GM meetings. I keep saying winter meetings. From the GM meetings in Las Vegas when we come back from the news.
Hi, Debbie Monterey here with Gloria Liu, owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed
Sports Open Line. Once again, Matt Pauley on KMOX.
Well, no Matt Pauley tonight. Matt's out for the rest of the week. He'll be back next week here on Sports Open Line. Kevin Wheeler back in my old chair. It's kind of weird being back in the drive. I've been on with Matt on Sports Open Line a lot of times since he's come aboard, but I haven't driven the show since I did the show on a regular basis 3-4 years ago. But happy to be doing it. Glad to be talking some ball, and also very excited that my good friend Derek Gould is kind enough to spend a little time with us from Las Vegas. Derek, I hope we're not keeping you from the strip or from the tables or anything like that.
Yeah, no, you're not.
I knew I wasn't.
You just introduced me as your friend, and then you said something that no.
Well, that was the joke. You would be the last person I would expect to see at the craps table.
Yeah, fair. That's entirely fair.
How's it been so far? I mean, obviously, GM meetings don't match up to the winter meetings in terms of action and deals and all of that. What's it been? What's the move been like?
Yeah, the GM meetings have really changed in the 20 years I've been covering them. Certainly a big change this year is it's not John Mozeliak here, so that's new for me. But this is a lot of the groundwork is usually laid for trades. First face-to-face meetings, agents have meetings with teams. There's a lot of exploratory stuff, and then they kind of. I kind of think of it as like round one of the off season.
Sure.
They get in the center of the ring, they exchange some punches, they see where each other is, they give some, uppercuts, they give some dekes, they might pass out a few rumors, and then they return to their corners to kind of reassess. And I think some of it has changed because of certainly this year it's changed because of the venue. It's just been really fascinating because it's not set up for mingling.
Oh,
just to be candid, it's a casino and a hotel, and the lobby's very small, and the lobby bars are kind of scattered, and there's not really like this like centralized hub of chatter that can kind of produce some of the best baseball stories going, and maybe even a deal or two. So, it's changed, but it is very exploratory. Coming to your question, and I think the vibe here is that there are a few position players to be had by trade, and a lot of teams would rather look there first before a free agent.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, in that way, I know you've talked about it. Bernie and I talked about it a number of times throughout the offseason, and then obviously, some of the national guys are starting to write about it now since everybody's there. The Cardinals seem to be pretty popular topic of conversation when it comes to players that might be moved.
Yeah, they're right there in the thick of it. They are actively trying to move 2 All-Stars, which gets a lot of attention, and they're getting a lot of attention on a 3rd All-Star and Brendan Donovan. And you have the pieces there, and you have a team that has openly said that it has a long-term view. Other teams hear that and go, well, where on their roster can we benefit from that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're seeing a lot of that. The Cardinals are getting a lot of interest and a lot of interest, a lot of conversation. We'll see if they get a lot of traction on the trade front.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, you mentioned, this is the first time doing this with Chaim Bloom in charge. What is there a noticeable difference? I mean, obviously personalities are different between he and Mo, but sometimes Mo off the record or behind the scenes is a little bit different than what the public sees. So I'm just curious, is it notably different, or has it been kind of the same?
Wait, can you go back to that part where wait, what did you say about Mo off the record?
Well, I don't know about, I never talked to him off the record really, but away from the cameras and microphones, away from all that, he was sometimes a good bit different than the kind of the person you would see at the podium doing a press conference.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah. He wasn't divulging a whole lot of,
no, but he would be a little snarkier, be a little funnier, where a little more dry when he knows it's cameras on and all that.
Sure, but there's a good possibility he might not yet confirm they traded for Nolan Arenado. So, had that conversation with him.
That's a good point. Really good point. But how is it? Is it notably different with Hyman, just in terms of how it works, not so much what's working?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I think he's in a different position than Mo is ever in the sense that he gets to talk about a future view.
Good
You know,
point.
so
Yeah.
much of when Mo was the president of baseball operations or general manager was like, "Are you going to win tomorrow? Are you going to win tomorrow?
Yeah.
What are you going to do to win tomorrow? Are you going to win tomorrow?" You know, I mean, I remember being at these GM meetings going, "Yeah, okay, yeah, but how does that help you win a World Series?"
Right.
I mean, literally asking that question. Like, I understand what you're looking for, but Mo, how does that help you win the next World Series? And with Chaim, there aren't those questions. You know, there should be, but there aren't. They're
There
like,
will be eventually.
there will be, but how does this get you closer to the core? How does
Right.
And you know, I think he has been really good about being candid about Sonny Gray, very candid about Nolan Arenado. He is doing so with both the blessing of the player and the agent. And he went to them and they talked through what he could say publicly. And I think he's given a lot of clarity there. You know, I think he's really detailed to a point of what their plan is. And then when you ask a question that he doesn't want to answer, he gives you a general answer and then explains like, look, that's a topic that you're just going to get general answers on.
Right.
And I like that because it saves us the dance of 7 more questions.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's something to be said for efficiency in that setting, right? Because there are things they would be unwise to say out loud.
Right. I think here's another, if I may offer you another change, is here's a guy who's come from 2 other organizations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was with Tampa Bay and he was with Boston. So you go up to Tampa Bay and they want to talk about how Chaim's doing in St. Louis. You talk to some folks from Boston and they want to talk about what Chaim is going to pull off in St. Louis.
Interesting.
I've had multiple people, executives and some agents from other teams who have had agents and then executives from other teams, let me say it that way, who have had interactions with Chaim Bloom, not Cardinals Chaim Bloom, but Boston Chaim Bloom or Tampa Bay Chaim Bloom. And they tell you about how encouraged or excited they are about what he might bring to the Cardinals.
Interesting.
That's different because, you know, Mo was 30 years with the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you go talk to the Red Sox about Mo, he's their rival. You talk about the Cubs, you know, or you go to the Cubs, talk about Mo, he's a rival. And so he was always a Cardinals executive, and that's how they saw him. With Chaim, there's a little bit more bigger group with different branches and different parts of different teams where they're like, hey, this could be intriguing what he's going to build there.
Interesting. So let's kind of build off of that, Derek, because I was talking about this earlier a little bit in relation to the Blues, and we were kind of making the point, like, maybe it's not the end of the world if you have a crappy year and you get a top 5 draft pick or something like that. So moving that idea to the Cardinals, these last few years have been frustrating for fans. It's obviously led to a drop in attendance, a lot of online anger. You get that with your chat every single week. But, you know, it's been a very frustrating circumstance, maybe because nobody would acknowledge or just say out loud that we kind of need this to happen, because the only way you get J.J. Weatherholt is if you're picking in the top 10. The only way you get Liam Doyle is if you're getting in the top 10. Maybe this is what was necessary to get things back to where we want them to be.
I guess, you know what both of those guys share in common?
Well, I mean,
Liam Doyle and J.J. Weatherholt.
Quite a few things, but I don't know what you're thinking.
I mean, they've yet to play a major league game.
No, that's true. That's true. But, I mean, when's the last time they had a player that was viewed the way that Weatherholt was? I mean, it's probably Taveras.
It's Oscar Taveras.
And that was a long time ago.
Yeah. No, well, maybe Alex Reyes. I mean, if you go.
He was definitely a highly ranked prospect for sure. Yeah.
He was number 1 prospect.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the top rated prospect in all of minor league baseball.
Good point.
You know, so, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I totally do. And it's a new paradigm for the Cardinals, but it's also one that they're choosing.
Mm-hmm.
It's also one that is not, let's say, historically accurate to their brand.
Right.
And so take that into account. Like, what they're talking about being is different. Mm-hmm. And I've heard other teams talk about doing this. And you know what they're not? they're not residents in October.
Yeah.
They don't make it back, or it takes years for them to make it back. I think any sort of hesitation from the fan base about what direction the Cardinals are going in is completely understandable. And I get where they're coming from, because there's no guarantee you emerge from this as a title contender. You might emerge from this as the Royals.
Sure, but outside of the top 5
Who
to
has
7
a great
payrolls,
player. They have a great player.
Yeah.
Bobby Wood Jr. They got rings?
No. Well, they do, but it was before Bobby.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. You might be that.
Yeah, maybe, but I would also kind of look at this outside of carrying a top 5 or 6 payroll. You're not gonna always be in the postseason. That's super rare unless you're carrying that kind of number. Like, that's the one thing, people talk about buying championships. When you don't really buy championships, but you do buy a place in October if you carry a $220+ million payroll.
You do increase your odds of reaching the postseason, and therefore increase your odds of advancing in the postseason. Yeah, we were just talking about this. It's so fascinating that you bring it up, because I was just talking about this with a few, let's say, unnamed executives, but smaller market executives.
Okay.
Literally, we were just talking about this, about how the notion of parity in baseball is kind of a panacea, right? You have the Marlins make it every so often.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Royals who made it. You had 3 teams from the NL Central who made the playoffs this past year.
Yep.
And that's all good. But start looking at the teams that get to the championship round. Start looking at the teams that win the World Series. What do they have? A preponderance of them have high payrolls. And as we can really get into this, and actually you and I would really enjoy talking about this, but think about a Tampa Bay Rays team that had Glasnow and Snell, right?
Yeah.
2 guys who were in the playoffs, or I'm sorry, who were on the World Series team, right? They are big parts of the Dodgers. Well, what the Dodgers can do with those 2 guys, the Tampa Bay could never do, is if they had Glasnow and Snell at the peak, they need those guys to make 28 starts.
Yeah, you got to be full time. Yep.
All right, they got to be full time. You know what the Dodgers can do? The Dodgers can be like, we'll pay you the freight of 28 starts, but we only need 20.
Right.
And
they're at the end, and we just need you to be there at the end. Yeah.
We need you to be there at the end. We need you to be there post. Scott Boras talked about this today with a few different guys, and he talked about these pitchers who will be there in the end and what a premium they should get in their salary. Well, just by defining it that way, you're limiting it to the high dollar teams to carry a guy like that. And so you're skewing things in the higher dollar range.
Right. And I think that is what makes the labor talk so interesting, to me anyway, because to me, the real fight here should be amongst owners. I don't think this should be a players union versus owners thing. That's a weird way to sort out the inequity between the people that are in the club of 30.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, shouldn't that be solved by the guys there?
I think it's coming. Yeah, I don't think you have to worry about owners squabbling. They can be pretty good at it.
No, I just mean we always, these always end up being negotiation issues. Like a salary cap is going to close the gap between the Yankees and the Pirates. It doesn't. No matter where you set the cap, the Pirates are still going to be at 30% of that cap compared to the Yankees, as opposed to, the 90% that you have in the NFL, for example. Right? The floor is 90% of the cap, and unless you're going to shrink that in a meaningful way, and that's an owner's issue. that's the Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, Philly. That's those teams being willing to share a lot more of their money so that the Pirates could spend $200 million.
Related to this, one of the biggest points of the GM meetings that is absolutely going to be out shouted by rumors and stated by bad puns and all that stuff is something that Scott Boras said today. And it is the point, and I hope that what he said gets to a large audience, particularly the commissioner's office and the other owners. And here's what he pointed out. He said, when you look at the numbers for Major League Baseball's playoffs and World Series, and you look at what they did audience-wise, and you compare that to the NBA, and then you go and compare the broadcast deals, and the NBA is twice the size or more of revenue for what baseball broadcast deal is, right? Meanwhile, the audiences are the opposite. And he said that is a sign of poor negotiations, and we as an industry need to rethink that. Amen.
Yeah.
That is very true.
Completely agree.
You want to start having teams like the Rays and the Bucks and these other teams, smaller markets, Cardinals included, who can close the gap on the bigger teams. You need to have greater national revenue that is carved up between all of those teams.
Yes.
And the best way to do that is whatever the streaming deal is or the broadcast deal is. But the fact that they don't have an NBA size deal when they have more inventory of games and they have higher ratings and they have a global superstar in Shohei Ohtani, akin to the NBA with global stars.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that they have such a poor broadcast deal when in comparison, that's what should resonate from these GM meetings. That phrase right there from what Scott Boras said.
Yeah, and I think part of the problem is in this, and this is where it's going to require the cooperation of the big markets, is it's just so localized, so locally sold and emphasized, right? So NBA has tons of national games of the week, right? Everything in the NFL is a national game.
Yeah, that's the broadcast partners trying to legitimize how much they're spending.
Sure. But I mean, like, if you're going to look at it the way that it is, you can't have a setup where the Dodgers pay themselves and the Yankees pay themselves and the Red Sox pay themselves, and then another team has to negotiate to get some 10% of that fraction because of their market size. If it's all essentially a national package and there's an equal share somehow, whether it's increased revenue sharing of local revenues or decreased share of national revenues for the big boys, one or the other, because, taking that national money and saying, okay, you big boys, if you're generating this, you only get 1/4 of what the other teams are going to get from the national pie. Because, I mean, again, it's got to somehow, however you do it, your description is perfect. However you do it, those gaps have to close from revenue before any limits or floors or anything even matter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You could do that a number of different ways. Yeah. You can also do that with expansion fees.
Oh, I know that's coming. And what do you think? $2 billion or $4 billion expansion fees?
And then and they buy out the big boys from their national or from their TV contracts.
Yeah.
So that everybody shares.
We just talked about that. Actually, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, but we were kicking that around that would be a path towards, I think Matt Pauly and I were talking about it on Monday, maybe. That's a path towards being able to buy those networks essentially from those teams, bring them into the fold. But here's your big payout. And it comes from those expansion fees because you got two franchises coming in. And then those add more eyeballs and they add more territories. And, that's the idea of making it grow.
Yep, that's right. And if you have a national TV deal, they can put the Yankees versus the Red Sox every Sunday. The other 30 teams after expansion benefit from it.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. All right, last thing, buddy. I'll let you run. I know it's been a long couple of days. Will you fly out tomorrow, I assume?
I hope so. Yeah, we'll see.
Good. Circumstances
I don't know
allowing.
if you paid attention to the news recently.
Circumstances allowing, yeah.
I know it's sports on an open line, but let me tell you a little bit about government shutdown on the open line.
Yeah, not great for travel, is it?
No.
Well, good luck with that. Last thing I had for you on that, and this is, you don't have to go too deep on it, but we've seen a lot of cool things, a lot of interesting stuff. I saw your video today on stltoday.com. Really interesting stuff in there about the kinds of guys that the Cardinals can target in free agency. We talked about it, you and I, on the best podcast in baseball a couple of weeks ago, and you hit it on it again in today's video. Short version for the people that haven't either heard or seen those two things, paint that picture that we've talked about.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways they could go. As of right now, it really seems like they're just in talking with other teams. The Cardinals are kind of gathering info for trades, but free agency wise, they that looks like a path for them to add a veteran starter. Or I'm sorry, veteran reliever. My fault, veteran reliever. They want to add one of those definitely to the bullpen. There are options out there. What they're willing to spend will be part of that, obviously. 1-year deal, or 2-year deals. But they got guys who either have Cardinal ties, Phil Maton, or St. Louis ties, Peter Fairbanks, who fit that description. Yeah, so that would be interesting. As far as starters go, just the wide array. Yesterday, Chaim Bloom was talking about how he wants to look longer term and kind of look at who can help them a few years down the road. I did ask him if like a shorter term stopgap for a starter helps create a protection for like a Liam Doyle or some of these other guys so that they don't have to go like, all right, well, we're going to start them 24 times. Right. And he agreed, so he said that's something they are going to look into. They could also then trade for a guy and then go for a lottery ticket in the market. Dustin May makes a lot of sense, and we'll see how far they go with that. They've had some talks at least about what that kind of move would look like, if not Dustin May specifically, but that kind of trade or that kind of signing where you have innings to offer. That guy wants to increase his value. Where do they meet?
Yep. Great stuff, bud. All right. Well, we'll be listening to the best podcast in baseball, reading you on STLtoday.com and in the Post-Dispatch on a daily basis. It's part of my regular routine because you're my guy. I appreciate you, man. Good luck tomorrow with the travel. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Kevin. Thanks. I'll give you an update on whether or not I get to leave Vegas or what's the drive like.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Well, when you're back, let's go grab some food.
I would like that. That.
See, buddy. That's Derek Gould of the Post-Dispatch. And again, if you follow the Cardinals, you follow Derek. I mean, I don't know why I'm doing an advertisement for the guy that everybody who's a Cardinals fan reads and follows, but obviously you should. And the best podcast in baseball is phenomenal. And there's a short version today, like a 13-minute video version of it today that can give you some tidbits, a little bit more detail than what we got today. Many thanks to Derek Gould. We'll come back and do a little more on Sports Open Line. I think I'm going to do some more hockey. I don't know, though. Sometimes the break grabs me in a different way. We'll see what happens.
Hey, what's happening? It's your man, Big Ticket, doing big things. Are debt payments keeping you up at night? Call Jack.
Again, 800-908-8646.
This is Coach Josh Schertz of your St. Louis Billikens. On behalf of the St. Louis community, thank you, KMOX, for 100 years of service. Here's the next 100.
All right, Sports Open Line on a Wednesday night. Kevin Wheeler stepping in for my buddy Matt Pauley. Obviously, Matt will be out for the rest of this week. He'll be back in next week as the plan goes. And, of course, we just keep on keeping on. Nate Gatter will be in this seat tomorrow night. And I believe, is it official, Kyle? Should I say it or not say Friday? Should I hold off? I mean, it's on the schedule, right? I think Rennie Knott, our good friend Rennie Knott, may be hosting on Friday night. That'll be cool. Looking forward to seeing Rennie getting back into the sports thing. And like we had him on DGS. He's a fantastic guy. And looking forward to hearing him on the radio side. So that'll be coming up on Friday night here on Sports Open Line. All right, so getting back to the Blues conversation. And again, we're not going to have – I don't have a time to get super deep on it. But, the first hour, well, I shouldn't say he wasn't even in the first hour. In Rush Hour Sports, talked a bit about that thing that I brought up with Derek, which is maybe it's not the end of the world if you have a bad year. Maybe it's not the end of the world that the Cardinals had these couple of down years, so long as you're going to do other things to get back, right? Because the teams, as Derek put it, there's a lot of risk, right, when you're doing rebuilds. But to me, there are levels of rebuilds, right? There's a tear down, there's a tank job, and then there is kind of where the Cardinals are, which is kind of a moderate rebuild. It's not like light. It's not like 3 things and go, but it's a more moderate thing. You're not destroying the roster. You're not trying to lose 100 games. You're not doing like what the Marlins did and going bare bones payroll of $60 million, or what the Pirates are doing at $75, $80 million. You're not doing that. That, to me, is a terrible idea. That's a risky move. What's happening with the Cards, and what I think, we know the Blues are in transition. They've said it. I mean, like Doug Armstrong has talked about how they're still trying to transition into their next window of contention. And when you're in a transition phase, sometimes it's not the end of the world if you have the year where it leads you to a higher draft pick. And I say this especially for hockey, more so than baseball, because everybody's capped out. It's hard to move players. It's hard to change your roster significantly from year to year. And in baseball, at least you have the freedom to expand your payroll when you want to, when you're ready to do it. And there will be no excuse to not do it for the Cardinals once they get themselves set and kind of get your roster ready to the point where you have the talent to contend for real, not just be on the outer edges of contention. And that's not easily available for a team like the Blues, because when you think about moving players, so if you're moving your core guys who have no trade clauses, by the way, so you have to get their agreement on where to go, and you lose leverage with the team that you're talking to because they know that the player isn't going to go anywhere. So what you end up doing is just kind of moving contract for contract, right? Bad fit for bad fit or something along those lines. And it's not always easy to do that. And a lot of ways, it's better to just keep your guys. I mean, because the guys we're talking about with the Blues, the guys with the big deals, a couple of them are super young. I'm not moving a Kyrou or a Thomas just to change a contract for a contract. I might do that with Buchnevich. He's a little older. I might do that with veterans. I mean, I could do something like that with Schenn, but Schen's one of the only leaders on the team. From a talent standpoint or an age standpoint, you might do that with him. But, he's one of the only guys that gets after it on a night-by-night basis. So, if you end up with a top 5 pick where you can get the type of player that can alter the core of your team moving forward, and God, you never know, if you end up with a number 1 pick, you might get the guy. I mean, how nice would it be to have a Macklin Celebrini on the team? A guy that can come in and impact you right away and has that little dog. He's got that grit. Some guys take more time. Look, it took Alex Pietrangelo time to become what he became, but you don't get that guy at number 22 or at number 14. Now, that's a top 4 or 5. That's a number 4 pick, but he would have been a top 5 pick, period, the end, no matter who was there. So I don't root for it. I don't think tanking is smart at all. I think tanking is just a way for owners to make money while their team sucks. I think you owe more to your customer and to put at least a reasonably competitive team out there, as competitive as you can be while accomplishing the goal of improving your talent base so that in a short period of time, you can be a meaningful playoff contender. And when you look at where the Blues are, I think they're in that in between. They're not as bad as their record now. I still believe that. I'm annoyed that we're still having these conversations about effort and you know, as they don't always use the term effort, but they talk about compete. We're not competing. Well, to me, competing is effort. It's a synonym. It's the same thing. So I'm tired of those conversations. I'm tired of the slow starts. But my feeling about the talent level on the roster and my belief that they're better than that hasn't changed because of 17 games. And because we've seen this group get better at the end of the last couple of years, actually the last 3 years, it's not crazy to think that they'll get better as they go. But it ain't going to be easy. You know, Vegas is coming in a couple of nights. You got Philadelphia and Vegas back-to-backs. And then you hit the road for basically 2 weeks through Thanksgiving. And there are no easy shakes in there either. So it's a challenge, but I think they're capable of it. But if it ends up being a case where, all right, it's just one of those years, it's a bad year, that's not the end of the world. It's when they get strung together and it goes over a 4 or 5 year window of that level of being bad. That's when you have a problem. All right, more Sports Open Line, little college football next on KMOX.
Dan owed an unbelievable amount of money to the IRS.
Two Kick at 2:30. Hear it here on 104.1 FM KMOX.
Man, the end of the show is creeping up on me. It goes fast. I get people asking me all the time, how do you talk for 2 or 3 hours? I don't know, man. It goes fast. It's fun. I don't know. When things are fun, it doesn't seem like they're dragging. When we look at the coming days, obviously, we got, let's see, what are we now? 3 weeks away from the winter meetings. So obviously the baseball stuff between now and then is going to heat up. It'll be a lot of fun, I think, for the Cardinals this offseason. Hopefully the Blues will kick things into gear. And I did want to get into a quick thing on Mizzou for a second. We don't always have a lot of time to cover everything in the depth that we want to, and I don't have a ton of time here. But I just wanted to make a point about Mizzou. I saw a video today of Coach Drinkwitz talking about success and essentially making the point. I'm paraphrasing. It's not a quote. That sports don't need to be all or nothing, right? It doesn't need to be playoff or failure or Major League Baseball playoffs or failure. Like, there are a lot of different levels. And I would agree in a sense. I would agree in the sense that in college football, the measure of success is consistency. If you can be 9-10 wins a year, you're going to have your big years and have your playoff opportunities. But most teams, probably 95% of teams, cannot be Alabama. Cannot be what Clemson was. And guess what? Clemson's not that anymore either. Can't be what Georgia has been. That's a very small minority of teams that can set the expectation of national championship contention every year, playoffs every year. And even they can only do it for periods of time. That said, I agree with that completely, and I wanted to point that out first. That said, this program at Mizzou has to, at some point, beat one of the big dogs. You have got to start winning. I'm not talking about all of them, but you've got to start beating the big teams in your conference from time to time. And I don't mean when they're down. I'm not talking about when Tennessee's down beating Tennessee. I'm talking about beating a team here and there that's got a single-digit number next to their name, or even a number in the teens next to their name. It's got to start happening at some point. Now, Drink hasn't been there that long. I love him. I don't think I would not. This is not about whether or not you would keep him. You're obviously keeping him. But expectations build. And at some point, there has to be a payoff. For Gary Pinkel, the payoff came in 2007. Before that, it was, let's run him out of town. When in reality, it's very tough to win at Mizzou. And I don't think we acknowledge that enough. And by we, I mean people that live here. I know it's the big state school. I understand it's very hard to win big there because you don't have geography in your favor. You don't have the money. They have money now. They're getting there. They do well in NIL. Stadium's coming up. They don't have Florida money. They don't have Alabama money. But at some point, you do have to get over the hump and have the big year. But yeah, it's only been 5 years for Drink. I think he's doing fine. Been fine. But I do think that there's a middle ground between just being consistently good, but also stepping up big at times. All right, we'll come back and wrap up Sports Open Line next here on KMOX.
KMOX proudly supports the Mutual Award.
Congratulations, KMOX, the voice of St. Louis, on a century of service.
All right, back in on Sports Open Line. Just a couple minutes left. Kevin Wheeler in for Matt Pauley. Matt will be back next week. Nate Gatter in tomorrow night. Our buddy Rennie Knott on Friday night here on Sports Open Line. That'll be cool. All right, let's finish with just a little more college football. Not on Mizzou, just college football. Started a little bit of this early, but I wanted to finish with just a complaint about the college football playoff rankings and the multitude of standards that are used when comparing teams. I think it would be really nice if the playoff committee could just commit to like 2 or 3 core principal issues that are going to be the focus of your rankings, right? I mean, okay, so first and foremost, record has to matter, right? Undefeated matters. One loss typically is better than 2, but there is some wiggle room there because that will play into some of the other criteria. But first one would have to be record matters. Second one would be how tough is your record? Who are you beating? Who are you losing to? How does that compare to the other teams? Is there a case where a 2-loss team could be ahead of a 1-loss team? For sure. But you got to make the case and not just say, well, we that's just how we viewed it. The eye test. They passed the eye test. No, you got to quantify it. I would toss into the record matters part that head-to-head has to matter. If 2 teams have the same record and similar overall schedules and one team beat the other, the team that beat the other should be there. Right? I mean, if the win-loss record's different, okay. So if team A beat team B, but team B has one less loss, okay, well, that's fine. They keep the advantage. That's okay. Head-to-head is not the be-all, end-all. But head-to-head is, let's all say it together, a tiebreaker. In every sport all across the world, head-to-head is a tiebreaker. It's not a defining factor. The record is first. And then you have things like head-to-head, strength of schedule, quality of wins and losses and all that. I don't think it should be so hard to just say, here's our criteria. And then each week when you come out and explain it, here is how this rankings setup matches our criteria. And then don't have contradictory items. Don't have the mix-ups. In the polls, the AP and the coaches poll, it doesn't matter. Those don't rank teams for the playoffs. But the playoff ranking system, much like we talk about with the NCAA tournament committee, it does matter. But you got a lot more room for error when you're picking 68 teams as opposed to picking 12. And that's all I got to say about that. Actually, I have more to say about it, but I don't have time to. So I'm going to wrap it up. Hey, Kyle Sixton, thanks so much. Good job running the shows tonight. Matt Pauley is back next week. You'll have Nate Gatter in the spot here on Sports Open Line tomorrow.
Now that we're getting older, we've been putting more thought into maintaining our health.